What's up, everybody? Today we're talking about the most important aspect of your musicianship, no matter what style of music you play. That is time. Your ability to play in time with a solid sense of tempo and a great feel is the most important thing that you can improve upon to improve your musicianship. All right, so the question might be, why is this aspect of our musicianship so important? Why is playing time and playing in the pocket so important to us playing with other musicians? For young players, this is really the thing that is going to make you a complete musician. Yeah, we've got to learn to play in tune, play the right notes, obviously, play with a great sound. But if all these things are working, but we're not playing in time, it's going to be really tricky to kind of interchange with other musicians. We've got to really make sure that we're able to listen to the other musicians we're playing with, maybe watch the conductor if there is a conductor, maybe play with the rhythm section if there is a rhythm section. And if we can't do these things, even though those other aspects of our musicianship are working, we're really going to be lacking in a serious way. So this is really the thing that I think unlocks student musicians starting to sound like pro musicians. For those of us who are adult musicians or professional musicians, this is really the thing, in my opinion, that gets you hired for work, for gigs. And if you're feeling like, man, I've got the chops, I've got the technique, but nobody calls me. Well, it's probably because you don't have very good time or you can't play in the pocket very well. As a trombone player, I'm always looking for ways to make myself an asset to the other musicians I play with. You know, for better or for worse, trombone is not the first call horn. It's not trumpet, it's not saxophone. So if you really want to work, you've got to find ways to make yourself an asset. And one of the ways that I do that is I often end up taking the lead in projects and end up hiring the other musicians. And when I'm thinking about who's going to do a good job on a particular performance, yes, they've got to have a good sound. Yes, they've got to be able to play in tune. But the biggest thing is they've got to play in time well, especially if I am playing on the gig as well. I don't want to play with other horn section mates who I'm going to be struggling to figure out where they're putting the beat all night, particularly in the lead trumpet chair. I don't care how high you can play. If you can play in the pocket, that's way more important to me. So for young players, this is really what is going to get you moving forward as a musician. And for older players like myself, this is really what gets you gigs, is the ability to play in time. All right, let's talk about a few ways you can work on improving your ability to play in tempo with a great feel. The biggest thing you can do is listen to great musicians who play with great time. And I don't mean just kind of put it on your headphones and listen to it in the background. I mean actively listen to these musicians and really dig into how they create this great feel. For me as a trombone player, that comes down to J.J. Johnson. He's one of my biggest influences in general, and definitely when it comes to his time feel, that's really what I want to sound like. The way he dictates time, there is no question. It feels great. The beat is always strong, and that's what I want to come out in my playing. So find your kind of time influences on your instrument or whatever instrument and whatever style of music you play, and really dig into those recordings. Listen, sing along, transcribe, play along. This is how we develop our sense of time. Once we've got some listening under our belts, the biggest thing you need to do after that is work with the metronome quite a bit. Now, this is something that can be challenging for beginners to work with the metronome and really stay with it, but it's something that's really, really important to do to develop your sense of time. So we're going to walk through a couple different strategies of using the metronome and how you can use it in your practice to help you improve. So let's check it out. Okay, I'm going to start with a really basic Remington-esque long tone exercise with the metronome. The metronome is going to A, help me keep my place where I belong in the exercise, but also it's going to help me know where my cutoffs are. I'm going to play a measure that is a whole note and then a second measure that is a dotted half note. So 3 beats, I'm going to cut off on beat 4 and the metronome is going to help me know right where that is. Okay, once we've laid some foundation with some long tones, we're going to go to some scale type exercises. We can start by just playing a scale with the metronome at kind of a modest tempo. This is 120, kind of a faster side of medium. Now, that's pretty basic, but that's where you need to start. Now, once you're feeling good about that, we can go to maybe some scale patterns. Let's do scales in thirds. That's every other note of the scale. I'm going to play them in quarter notes to start, and then we'll try eighth notes. Then once that's feeling pretty good, you could switch to eighth notes, same exercise. Now, once your technique develops a little bit and you feel a little more comfortable playing with the metronome, that's when you can really try to start pushing the tempo along. Now, instead of this metronome marking being the quarter note 120, I'm going to make it the half note equals 120. So essentially, we're going to play in cut time now. I'm going to play a little different scale pattern, but really focusing on the fast playing with the metronome. And working on exercises like that, that's how we develop our fast technique. By using the metronome, gradually creeping that up. In all honesty, I probably could have played that a little cleaner, and maybe I actually needed to start maybe 10 beats slower than I am right now, and then gradually creep that metronome up until I reach a tempo that is comfortable. All right, once we've worked on some foundation laying with some long tones, maybe worked on some of the basic ability to play with the metronome with some scales, let's put it into context. I'm going to play a chorus of blues, working with the metronome, really just focusing on really being in the pocket. Now, once we've just kind of worked on all the other stuff we talked about, some scales, some long tones, maybe working on some improvisation in time, let's actually talk about how we can maybe push our ability forward to play faster with more control. That's one thing I see with a lot of my students is they struggle with the ability to play fast with controlling the tempo. And I think the area where they usually have a little bit of a pitfall is they try to go too fast, too soon. You can never go too slow. Well, I shouldn't say you can never go. You can never practice something too slow for too long. Yes, you might have a performance out there that you need to get the tempo up, but slow practice is always a wise investment. Let's look at this in context of a Voxman etude. This is page 11 in the first Voxman book. This is a really common one, really I think typifies the style that's in this book. I'm going to play this a couple times. The first time I'm going to try to play it just a hair on the slower side. It's marked at Allegro moderato, so somewhere maybe between 110 and 120 is our goal tempo. I'm going to be just on the bottom side of that so I can still play it confidently in the pocket. Let's hear what that sounds like. Now, what I see with many of my students is either by the fact that they're trying to take that tempo a little too literally, or they're just trying to go too fast too soon. Maybe they say, all right, well, it says Allegro moderato. I'm going to go all the way at 120 right out of the gate and see how I do. Let's see what that would sound like. Now you can hear in there, I definitely didn't play it quite as clean. And what I find with many of my students is as tempo increases, even if they have the technique to play it at that fast, their time starts to struggle because they haven't invested enough slow practice time with the metronome. Rather than thinking, hey, I've got to really focus on pushing forward tempo-wise, we need to think, hey, I need to practice this some maybe 10 beats below, 20 beats below the tempo where I can actually do it confidently with the metronome to really reinforce where the tempo is. In this particular etude, there are a number of ties from like the end of 2 to the downbeat of the next measure, or excuse me, the end of 1 to the downbeat of 2. And students, I think, tend to rush there. When we have that offbeat, we have to come in and we tend to rush. They get ahead on those ties. And then when we get to a little more technically challenging section, maybe here, they struggle to keep the tempo up in the upper register, and then they fall forward in the middle and lower register. Kind of trying to catch up to where they are. We want to focus on playing a little slower and really keeping it confident. We do that a couple times every practice session, and from there we can develop a strong sense of time and then push the tempo forward. It's not that we don't want to play fast. Clearly we need to. This is marked at Allegro Moderato, so it's going to be pushing 120. However, if we don't invest that time a little slower, we'll never learn to play it faster, and really we'll be investing time towards developing a bad sense of time rather than a good sense of time. The final component of really developing a good sense of internal rhythm and to be able to play at a consistent tempo with others is not counting time, but feeling time and feeling rhythm. I can't emphasize this enough. The audience, when they are listening to play, I guarantee you they are not thinking 1, 2, 3, 4. Maybe a few of them are, but most of them are just feeling where the groove is, feeling where the beat is. And if you are not feeling where that beat is physically, they're never going to. You have got to internalize where that is. And the best way, in my opinion, to do this is to allow your body to move to where the beat is. And if this is something that you feel uncomfortable with, kind of moving to the music, number one, you probably just need to get over it. Almost all good musicians move in some way to the music. Now, I'm not talking about you don't have to dance or anything like that, but you need to maybe tap your foot. You need to, get a little bit of motion in your ocean. If you're just sitting there and trying to think about the time up here only and not having it live in your body, connecting physically with where the beat is, you will never really learn to play in tempo effectively. All right, hopefully that gives everyone some things to think about and some ways to think about improving their time and the importance of their time. Regardless of what style you play, the ability to play in tempo, in the pocket, with others, it might be different across all those styles, but it never stops being important across all those styles.